Hey everybody, good to see you back, whoever you are. Welcome aboard. We're just starting a couple minutes early just to make sure that there's time for anybody who wants to plug in to plug in and come on board here. We're going to be looking today in Exodus 7 and 8, the first two plagues or so, and I'm glad you're with me today. I'm coming to you from western Michigan, where it's snowing outside here, and there's only about 3 or some inches out there. And so we're just tuning up here and just getting ready to roll out here at 11 o'clock. So 3 minutes. So this would be 3 minutes of chatter, because I guess that's what the world needs, is 3 more minutes of chatter. So yeah, interesting pieces coming up here and there, starting here in a couple of days. Have you heard of the big COP28 meeting, the world meeting of government leaders, and they're very extremely concerned about global climate change and all that business, and they're gonna get together and come up with lots of fun things for us to do so that we can save the world. And we shouldn't break the world. It's God's world. We shouldn't break it. He made it. It's His world. He made it for us. But human based. Well, if I get into this, I suppose the Google AI is gonna come in and start smashing me. So maybe I won't get into that just now. Anyway, here just another moment or two here, and we'll begin. And we're just starting today's live stream a couple minutes early. I'm going to get in here and look at what we have here in Exodus. So I'm kind of waiting till we get to that. Yeah, you know, the way that this global the human part, there's apparently variations in climate because sin has entered the world. But how much of it is human and how much of it is not, there's a lot of questions about how much of it is human and how big of a difference we can make on that. Is it our task to save the planet? Are humans just kind of alone here on the planet, and we have to save it or else be destroyed? Well, from my perspective, of course not. We are God's creatures. God designed Earth. He designed humans. He put us here. And so He is watching over us. It doesn't mean we can't mess things up pretty badly. But anyways. Yeah. You can see all my junk on the floor. Well, you can see the junk on the floor that way too. All right, well, we may as well begin here. I guess I'm a minute early. So, yeah, we kind of start at 11 o'clock. So I'll give you a little bit more elevation here. There we go. All right. So, here we are. So welcome to the YouTube Live for this week. This week we started at about Exodus 7, verse 14, and we come all the way out into 8, verse 15. And so I'm just going to go ahead and begin with those things. So we had the serpents, rods into serpents, kind of the preview incident there between Moses and Aaron and Pharaoh, and now, but Pharaoh wasn't too impressed. His magicians seemed to duplicate all that, and so we move on into the first of the 10 plagues. Now, it's interesting, Pharaoh doesn't know if there's going to be 10 plagues, but he doesn't even know there's going to be one. But anyway, here comes number 1. So we have these plagues, and when you have this verse 14, by the way, it's not till you get us through the first 6 plagues. We haven't really talked about the hardening of Pharaoh's heart yet, and we're definitely going to do that. Very, very interesting topic. One of the key topics, really, in all this. But it's interesting. It's not until 6 plagues in that it says that God hardens Pharaoh's heart. He predicted. He said he would harden Pharaoh's heart way back at the beginning, but he doesn't actually execute on that until you're all the way up to plague 7 or so there. So interesting, because the first 6 plagues, it's all kind of voluntary. Pharaoh's making his choices. Pharaoh's deciding what he will and will not do in response to Yahweh, the God of heaven and earth. So, yeah. Well, anyway, let's talk about the first plague here. So, if you happen to be following along, we're at Exodus 7, and we've already done our 7 videos for this week. But we had come to that first plague, and it begins here that God tells Moses that Pharaoh's heart is stubborn, and it is. And so he instructs Moses and Aaron to go to a certain place. They're going to meet Pharaoh as he goes out by the Nile. And we don't know whether he was going out to take a morning bath or he's going out to some kind of religious ritual. Now, we do know that Egyptian culture is like magic all the way through. Okay, it's like all pantheism. Everything has deity. Everything is divine. And you've got every kind of different god. The Pharaoh wears a hat with a funny snake on top. That's representing the cobra goddess. And the Nile River itself is a god. Supposedly, God is kind of in like everything. And there's a couple of other gods we'll probably talk about here as we work through a couple of these plagues. At least superficial hit on this today. So yeah, there's lots of fake gods all over the place, and the business that's going to happen over these next 10 plagues that are now imminent is that God is going to show, I'm the true God, I'm the real deal, I'm the real stuff, I am the creator. These are all fake gods. You're worshiping a bunch of nothingness. Like you can upgrade. We can go marching up to higher ground and worship the true God. What value is there in worshiping a non-entity? Like the Nile is not a god. It's very wet, but it's not a god. Okay, and then there's the crocodile god and so on. So anyway, we come to this first one. Pharaoh, at verse 15, in the morning, goes out to the water, and Moses and Aaron there to station themselves and meet him there. And so that's what they do. They station themselves and meet him there. And he takes the staff, and he's got certain things he's supposed to say to him. And verse 17, by this you shall know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will strike the water that is in the Nile with the staff that is in my hand, and it will be turned to blood. The fish that are in the Nile will die, the Nile will become foul, and the Egyptians will find difficulty in drinking water from the Nile. So that was kind of our first one for the week, and we got into this. This is the instructions God gives. Moses and Aaron, they're going out to, they're going to have a little visit with Pharaoh by the riverside. So, yeah, and it all works out this way. Pharaoh comes out to the water, and then, he hasn't let the people go. And so we have the response. Before we go to that response, let's just talk about the blood. The Nile waters turned into blood. This doesn't mean that it was turned into literal hemoglobin. It doesn't mean that. Blood can simply mean that it's the color turned red. And we talked about how the red flagellates, there are different theories, different naturalistic theories about what could have happened to this, the red tide thing. And of course, it could have been just supernatural as well. Well, it certainly was supernatural. God, this is an explicit strike by God against Pharaoh and against his false business. So yeah, that's what's going on. But how he does it, he often chooses to interact with his world through naturalistic kind of means. So anyway, Pharaoh is unrelenting. He didn't let his people go, and so they take and they strike the water, and the waters turn to blood. In other words, it turns red. It definitely becomes at least semi-poisonous or something. Everything in the river dies. I mean, probably not just dying because of the color, right? So yeah, this first plague, this is like number 1, and there's a series of plagues that are going to stair step up. They're going to increase and increase and increase exponentially in the magnitude. I mean, yeah, so you've got some bugs and stuff here and there and some frogs. those seem like pretty low level stuff. But yeah, God starts at the low level. And the magicians, at least in appearance, they can copy some of the early stuff. But yeah, that's what we have here going on is Pharaoh did not relent. Pharaoh wouldn't let the people go. God says, okay, take this and try this on for size. So the waters of the Nile are turned to blood. And the only way to get something to drink is you got to dig in the dirt and get it that way. So that, suddenly like all Egypt is on notice. All Egypt is like, hey, this is not business as usual. Something's up. Something's going on. So no email, no text messaging, no phone lines, not even a telegraph. But because of what God is doing with Moses and Aaron, the word must have spread very quickly. I mean, yeah, you're in Egypt and one day you look and hey, all the water around you is red and poisonous. Anything that kind of gets into it is dying. So that word would go out. Hey, something's going on. So that's plague number one. I mean, this is like the little Boy Scout level on the 10 plagues. So yeah, plague number one, and away we go. So that does not seem to reach Pharaoh, and then his magicians, his court philosophers and magicians, they in some way they duplicated it. Now the text is a kind of a bare text. I don't believe that they truly duplicated it because, and I think we mentioned this last week, that Satan nor any of his agents have any power to create. Creation is exclusively the prerogative of the God of heaven and earth. Even today, when the scientists blend, and I know that people who are studying biology and they sometimes get involved in some genetic business with fruit flies and breed weird fruit flies and stuff. Hey, guess what? They're not creating anything. They're kind of remixing, It's like the DNA and all that and how that all works. It's there. It's what God is already. It's the building blocks are there because the Creator put them there, right? So humans don't make anything. It's like that little joke I might have told you one time. I'll probably tell it a couple of other times. So these scientists got together and they finally decided that they didn't need God. And so they went to talk to God and say, hey, we don't need you anymore. So, and God said, oh, really? Well, why don't you prove it? And they said, yeah, we don't need you to do any creation. Anyway, I'm not probably telling this right. But anyway, they started to bend down in the dirt and get some nature. God says, get your own dirt. Because humans don't have their own dirt. God created everything. So in other words, hey, let's just be honest. We are dependent beings. God designed us. God made us. God made the world from nothing. Ex nihilo. That's your old Latin for, out of nothing. God made everything that is out of nothing. And so we are not independent. If I want to say, yeah, I'm gonna just go on my way, I'm gonna breathe on my own, I'm kind of dependent on an atmospheric mix that includes oxygen and so on, so I can breathe. If I miss that, I'm going to be dead in a couple minutes. So yeah, we are dependent creatures. We're dependent on God in virtually every way. Maybe you have a pet in your home. You have a goldfish. Well, it's pretty dependent on you. If you don't feed it, it will die. If you have an animal and you don't take care of it, you don't feed it and give it food and water, and it's locked in the house long enough, he will die. Okay, because he's dependent on you, and humans are dependent upon God. So that's just kind of the way it is. We are dependent creatures. Get over it. Just expect it. It's just the way it is. You need him. He gives you life. He gives me life. And so anyway, Pharaoh is got his magicians there. They appear to duplicate this, but yeah, they could not have possibly actually turned the water of the Nile into blood. And by the way, if they're such high-powered magical engineers or whatever, what would Pharaoh? If I was Pharaoh, what would I tell them? Well, look, guys, if you're on a level with Moses and Aaron, since they've turned the waters of the Nile from water into blood, you guys turn it back. Go for it. You better do it. Yeah, well, they're not going to do that because they don't. They're probably faking it all along. There's some supernatural help going on here from the devil, but actual creation, no, absolutely not. So that's the first plague. we have the water there turned into blood. And so that's kind of a bad deal because, yeah, you've got what? You've got all these people worshiping the Nile. The Nile's a deity. And so now the water's been turned to blood. Something stronger than the Nile as a deity has done some modifications here on the Nile. So then we come to well, Pharaoh doesn't relent. He just simply doesn't relent. So now we come to plague number 2. And so you go to chapter 8, and again, they're to meet Pharaoh and say, as Moses gets used to saying, thus saith the Lord, let my people go. Pharaoh's not in that mode yet. And so he says, okay, if you don't, look at this. Verse 2, chapter 8, verse 2, but if you refuse to let him go, behold, I will smite your whole territory with frogs. And then he talks about the frogs are going to be everywhere. They're going to be in everything. They're going to be in your cooking areas. They're going to be in your beds. And of course, the Egyptians slept on mats. And so, yeah, that would be kind of, you're in the middle of the night, you hear all this croaking all over the place, and you roll over into squeaky frogs. And this wasn't just going to be the common people. This is affecting everyone. This is affecting everyone in Egypt. It's affecting Pharaoh, Pharaoh's officers. This is affecting Pharaoh's magicians. This is affecting the chief provincial leaders or whatever. This is affecting the Hebrews, Moses and Aaron, and all the priests of the different Egyptian religions. Everybody's got frogs suddenly because God causes frogs to come up everywhere. By the way, they worshipped a certain frog-headed goddess, and we talked about that already. And so, yeah, the frog was kind of like a sacred creature there. And now they've got frogs, so much frogs, they don't know what to do with them. They don't want to step on one because, oh no, it's a divine, don't step on God. That's probably not good. So now they've got frogs just coming out of their nose, just everywhere. So God attacks the frog goddess of the Nile, and shows that he can multiply them. And then he's at the end, well, we'll see here. We come up to the next thing, and we're still in the frog one. And now we get something different from Pharaoh, and it's kind of interesting because Pharaoh, what was at the beginning of this whole business here? The previous week we had, I think, some of those devotionals. When Moses and Aaron first go into Pharaoh, he says, well, who is this? Who is this Yahweh? Who is this God who is Yahweh that I, Pharaoh? Because Pharaoh himself is a god, right? He supposedly is God, kind of incarnated in a sense. He's not, but supposedly in Egyptian culture, they viewed him that way. So I'm Pharaoh. I am kind of a god, and you're telling me about this God of the Hebrews. Look, the Hebrews, they are our slaves. You guys are our slaves. Your God versus our God must be, that must be a funny thing, pretty funny. And so, yeah, Pharaoh is not too keen. He says, who is this God? I do not know your God. Now what? Now there's frogs everywhere, and Pharaoh sends a message to Moses. And Moses gets the email. Moses gets the text message. Please come and see me at 9 a.m. today. So Moses goes down to see Pharaoh. And Moses and Aaron go to visit him, and Pharaoh has a request. Please pray to your God for me that he would remove the frogs. And Moses doesn't rub his nose in it or anything, like, hey, I thought you said you don't know our God, and now you want me to pray to him for you? And Moses does nothing like that. Moses is gracious. God is gracious. Hey, Pharaoh is a big, oppressive, pain in the neck guy, oppressing God's people. I mean, that's not a small thing. But Pharaoh is also human. Pharaoh is made in God's image. Pharaoh has the moral capacities. He's a real human being. God would want to win Pharaoh. And so he's going to kind of humiliate Pharaoh here on the way, but he still wants Pharaoh in the kingdom. Wouldn't it be interesting if Pharaoh, in the end, were able to be saved and he could be your next door neighbor in the new earth? And maybe by then he'd be a pretty cool guy, pretty good guy, a loving, generous, unoppressive sort. And you would be a loving, generous, unoppressive sort. Well, anyway, here we have Pharaoh's got a prayer request. Please ask your God to take the frogs, relent on the frogs. And so Moses then does this thing where he says, okay, well, you tell me, you are Pharaoh, when do you want me to pray so that God will remove the frogs? And Pharaoh says tomorrow. Now there's a couple of different ideas in some of the commentaries about that. Is it tomorrow or was it immediately, or when exactly was it? And you can look into the text, and there's different questions about what was meant. I'm just assuming as I look at it all, and I believe that Pharaoh, he's a pretty stubborn guy, right? Yeah, so I'm pretty much believing that Pharaoh told Moses and Aaron tomorrow, just as it says in the text. Pray that he will remove, stop this plague of the frogs tomorrow. So Moses goes out from him, and that's exactly what he asks for. Now, God does exactly what the request is, and God removes, the frogs stop multiplying. God doesn't actually fully remove them. He leaves them to stink up the place, and they have to actually take them. And the text tells us they're actually scooping up these frogs, these holy frogs. They're scooping them up now. What do you do with a dead holy frog? Well, anyway, they're scooping up. They're raking them off into piles, and stinking, rotting, with buzzing flies and things around them, and carrion and birds landing on them to eat them. The divine frogs are stacked into these just piles and oodles of piles all over the place. So yeah, the frog worship thing might have decreased a little bit after that. We don't really have a lot of content on that, but it seemed to be clear that God is stronger than the gods of Egypt, including the big frog god. So anyway, God is kind of basically burning down all the gods of Egypt one by one, and he's not going to burn them all down because there's a lot more than 10 deities in Egypt. But anyway, he is going through one by one, and so far he's burned down the Nile, and now he's burning down the frog god. And there was a serpent god at the beginning, kind of the precursor of the 10, the rod into serpent thing. There's kind of a cobra god that's what the one on Pharaoh's funny hat that pokes out, and that he's supposed to be a protector of Pharaoh, the Pharaoh of Egypt, and he kind of got burned down before we even got started. So anyway, there's 2 or 3 down and a lot more to go, but things are looking kind of intense here. So we come to the frog one, and another piece about the frog one was that Pharaoh's magicians apparently appeared to duplicate the frog business. So they multiplied frogs. And again, it had to be the same as the first one. Satan does not have creative power. Satan has great power to deceive. Satan has great power of illusion. He has power to confound. Okay, those are things that Satan's good at. He's a liar and a murderer from the beginning, right? John 8:44, meant to so many other places. So yeah, Satan, through his agencies, the magicians of Egypt, appears to duplicate it. And yet again, if you were Pharaoh, you'd gather these guys up. Hey, we're having a meeting. Get in here right now. Okay, so you duplicated the frogs, right? Yes, sir, we did. Okay, well, that's good. Well, I saw it. We kind of believe you did it. Now, can you take these away? Because if you don't take them away, I'm going to have to talk to Moses and Aaron. They're going to have to take them away. And I don't want to do that. I want you to take them away. You can take the frogs away just as you could multiply them, right? Yeah, right? No, they can't do that. No. The magicians of Egypt they're not even going to make a claim they can do that. Can't do it. That's why that's why Pharaoh has to go to Moses and Aaron, and with his hat in his hand, he has to come and say, would you please pray to your God for me to remove the frogs? And he even makes a deal. In the text, it said that he agreed that they could make sacrifice to their God. So, as you know, the frogs stop multiplying. God upholds his end of the deal. Pharaoh, when he gets relief, he is completely uninterested. He just does not fulfill and pursue and go through at all. And so there you have it. Pharaoh reneges. He reneges on the deal. Then we're going to come to plague 3 and plague 4, and onward we go. So anyway, that's kind of some of the business going on with, and we're going to come to plagues that Pharaoh's magicians cannot even duplicate here. So anyway, we're going to watch that as we come near that. Let's see. Anything else we want to talk about here today? This past week, a couple of quick business here. We came up with. I put out a video a week or maybe a week before this. I forgot when it was. The 19th, I think it was. The Church of England activates same-sex blessing. Now, they already made that decision actually in February, but it was voted on and officialized, and the vote passed here, I think on the 10th or whatever day it was here this month. So we did a video on that. I think it was on the 19th I did it. And boy, suddenly the last day or day and a half here, suddenly the Anglicans must have found that video, because it's I don't know, what do you call going viral, but there's been about 1,500 hits on it here over the last day and a half. So for me, tiny little tiny YouTube, just barely on, not even on the map, 1 pixel, my little YouTube channel. For me, that's going viral. So yeah, there's been lots of people commenting on it, and most people seem to agree. Wrong thing, bad thing, not biblical, same-sex blessing. The church cannot bless as much as it might want to. I mean, we want everybody to be happy and friendly, but you can't bless something that God says is not blessable. So anyway, kind of interesting piece there. All the comments over there, you can look at that if you're interested. And then last night, I finished finally the Great Technocratic Reset. It's kind of a going back, 3 years ago, 46 months ago. Is that how long it's been? We were back in the early 2020s when our world kind of all changed around us. And I did a book review of this book. And there's a video on this up there where I review this. I can't remember if it's 20 minutes long or 10 minutes long. Klaus Schwab, the COVID-19, the Great Reset. So I kind of reviewed that, and I added a 2-minute clip from 9 months ago. Klaus Schwab did a summit with the government leaders meeting in Dubai, which now they're going to meet next week, in the next day or two here, with the big climate thing. Probably in the same building. Anyway, we went back and looked at this a little bit, and looked especially at Revelation 18 and the 3 agencies there, Babylon, the kings of the earth, the merchants of the earth, and how that might apply. So we kind of revisited that. If you haven't seen that video, that's the one that I'm real excited about right now, but it's just come out. There's very few people that have watched it. So those are a couple of the latest things on the channel, and sure, wave that in front of you. Yeah, that's in the new set of the new playlist I have. I'm doing the Horizon Watch videos, and we're going to basically have roughly about 1 a week. Those are little teaser videos that take you back, and there's Bible study you can get into right here, and a Zoom call once a week you can get into here. We'll try to do our first one this Thursday night at 8 o'clock. So I wonder if you can read these, if this will come up backwards for you and it won't work, or if your computer will figure it out. Anyway, you're welcome to partake of any of those things. And yeah, you can see there's one missing there. I got to do one more. And we'll come out with this once a month. And this will be a little outreach tract you can give out, and people can trip it on their cell phone just instantly with the camera, kaboom. And yeah, there are a lot of things happening in the news today that are foretold in the scriptures and foretold, and we want to be awake to the times that we're in. And so those are things that wake up people. We're living back here at the far edge of crazy times, and so I just invite you to become engaged with that. So take a look at the Great Technocratic Reset vid, and keep on. We're going to keep on here in Exodus as we get into the 3rd plague and the 4th plague and the 5th plague, and onwards up here, and we kind of accelerate to the 10th plague, And then I'm trying to figure out where in here we're going to start addressing the hardening of the heart, maybe around the sixth plague, because that's when it says God hardened Pharaoh's heart. So when we get there, we'll look at that, and there's a couple things I'm looking forward to sharing with you there that I think you'll find to be maybe some thoughts you've never had before. Very interesting pieces, because the God of heaven and earth, you think you know well, we're just all puppets to be manipulated, we're dangling from his little puppet strings. No, no. And even with Pharaoh, no. So I'll leave that hanging. We'll come to that. If you hang with me there, we'll come to that. All right, that's going to be all today. Don't see a lot of activity here on the YouTube Live. So come and stand in with us if you're interested. Every Monday at 12 to about 12 to 12:30, and we'll let it go for there. Glad that whoever you are that is watching this, maybe at a later time, may the Lord bless you, watch over you. May you be a person of God's Word, because if you're not a person of God's Word, you're a person of human words, and frankly, yeah, human words for a nickel and a bunch of human words, what do you get? The nickel might be worth something. Human words, not so much. All right, hey, have a wonderful day, and I'm going to go out and take a walk in the snow.